Rich text window justice reform in the Deep South. By the editorial board, May 18, 2015. It has been getting easier by the day for politicians to talk about fixing the nation's broken criminal justice system. But when states in the Deep South, which have long had some of the country's harshest penal systems, make significant sentencing and prison reforms, you know something has changed. Almost all of these deep red states have made changes to their justice systems in the last few years, and in doing so they have run laps around Congress, which continues to dither on the passage of any meaningful reform. Lawmakers in Alabama, for example, voted nearly unanimously early this month to approve a criminal justice bill. Alabama prisons are stuffed to nearly double capacity, endangering the health and lives of the inmates, and the cost of mass imprisonment is crippling the state budget at no discernible benefit to public safety. The bill would cut the state's prison population of nearly 25,000 by about 4,500 people over the next 5 years. Sentences for certain nonviolent crimes would be shortened, and more parole supervisors would be hired to help ensure that people coming out of prison don't return. Governor Robert Bentley is expected to sign the measure as soon as Tuesday. Before Alabama, South Carolina passed its own package of reforms in 2010. In February, it closed its second minimum security prison in a year. Georgia got on board with significant reforms to its adult and juvenile prison systems in 2012 and 2013, including giving judges more leeway to sentence below mandatory minimums and increasing oversight of prisons. In 2014, Mississippi passed its own systemic fixes, like providing more alternatives to prison for low-level drug offenders. Of course, all these states had abysmal conditions to start with. Mississippi imprisons more of its citizens per capita than China and Russia combined. That's worse than any state except Louisiana, which has not yet managed reforms as broad as its neighbors. Alabama was facing the threat of federal intervention to alleviate its crushingly overcrowded prisons if it didn't act. And many of these state reforms are far more modest than they should be. Alabama's prisons, for instance, will still be 40% over capacity in 5 years, even if everything goes as planned. In many parts of Mississippi and Alabama, the lack of funding for public defenders is so acute that people can spend months behind bars before even being indicted. Nonetheless, these initiatives show important progress. Less than a decade ago, it was difficult to find any governor anywhere, of either party, who would go near this issue. Now, a Republican governor like Nathan Deal of Georgia is pointing with pride to 2 major reform packages, as well as the state's ban-the-box law, which prohibits the state from asking potential employees about their criminal history until later in the hiring process. Still, justice reform is a fragile proposition, and can be easily thwarted by more powerful political forces. As the 2016 presidential election approaches, most of the major candidates agree that criminal justice reform is a priority, but there remains a good deal of ambivalence on how to move forward. There needn't be. The reforms in the southern states, though limited, are already paying off. The presidential candidates, not to mention Congress, should be paying close attention. Follow the New York Times opinion section on Facebook and Twitter, and sign